Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of That Esports Podcast. I'm Golden Boy. It's a pleasure to have you here today, and I'm very pumped because we got a lot to talk about. Honestly, I thought that this was going to be a lighter episode, partly because I'm in Belize right now on vacation with my family, but I decided that, you know, the drive, the grind, it doesn't stop, baby. So I wanted to make sure I bring this to you guys all the way from the other side. I'm actually in the middle of the ocean right now, on an island in Belize. That's how much I care about this podcast. Also, I want to give a shout out to each and every one of you that tuned in to episode 1 of That Esports Podcast. If you haven't yet, I have an interview there with Attach. He talks about going into Minnesota and what to expect for his team, the New York Subliners. Give that one a listen if you happen to get a chance to do so. But before we jump into, I guess, the monologue, the topic to start things off here, I wanted to play a little clip for you. And this is actually from ESPN Esports. They had one of their shows, and Jacob Wolf was on there talking about some of the mistakes that Blizzard has made with esports and the Overwatch League. Let's take a listen.
Right here, Overwatch is successful. The reason people care about Blizzard is because other games have been successful before for them, and they've always botched the esports part of it. This is not new. The way that they behave in esports is not new. But the people at the Activision Blizzard level, above all the people like Mike Morhaime and others that were at this league, thought they knew better. They thought that they knew this, and they used people like League of Legends numbers and used people like Counter-Strike's numbers to the same point of Emily saying that it was a monolith. Everyone thought that way, and most of them still do in investments, that esports is all one great big thing, and that esports as a whole, when you see these giant numbers, which is probably 1/6, 1/7 League of Legends, and 1/8 or 1/9 Counter-Strike, right, that compose these giant numbers. They took those numbers and said, look at this Newzoo report. Look at this Nielsen and Super Data report. See this? Come invest with us. But this company has never made a successful esports themselves. They have made the game, and the community has built it. And they tried to do this inorganically with Overwatch, and it has not worked. That is my point.
So that was a lot of emotion there, obviously, from Jacob Wolf, a person who I greatly admire and respect. And, you know, I think that one thing I do want to say, first and foremost to the situation, is that I think it's kind of ridiculous how the community has kind of jumped on Jacob Wolf, a person who's been, in my opinion, probably one of the most positive advocates for the Overwatch League. I find it to be just really, really shocking how people get so mad at him about this. Now, there was the common criticism that I saw, especially on Reddit, was that he didn't give any ideas. He didn't give any solutions. First and foremost, for the Overwatch community that I love and that I come from and I hold very dear to my heart, you got to learn how to take some negative criticism, guys. Because, look, the reality is that while the league has been entertaining for a lot of us, right, it is going to go into a bit of a struggle bus this year. It could be difficult. I'm not saying it will be. I'm just saying that it could very well be difficult. We don't even know where the league is going to broadcast next year. We have no idea. We don't know. And as of this recording on the 21st of January, we have no idea if they're going to re-sign with Twitch, if they go to YouTube, if they go to Facebook, if they sign a deal with D-Live, or they go to Twitter, or even if they sign something with ESPN or Disney. I mean, who knows? We have literally no insight into what is going to happen with the Overwatch League this year. We don't know where we're going to watch it. And that, to me, is a problem. It's a problem because I'm sure that a lot of the investors want to start making some money back on this thing, because it has been 3 years and this season is going to cost a ton of money. But I'm sure that there is a plan in place. Now, in regards to what Jacob has been talking about, and by the way, plan is loose, because again, we don't really know what's going on with the game. We don't know what's going on with the league. There hasn't really been much conversation outside of, the casters leaving and some of the, I guess, rumors that you see pop up all over Reddit. But the other conversation that he brings up, and that is very interesting, is that Overwatch is, doing all right, but when you look at the rest of the Blizzard esports catalog, it really has been pushed by the grassroots. It has been pushed by the community. And I would agree with him. I would 100% agree with Jacob. Blizzard makes phenomenal games. We all know this. We love all of their games. But when it comes to esports, it has really been hit or miss. Look no further than Heroes of the Storm. And I think that one can argue that maybe the game came out at a wrong time. Maybe that there was a little bit of friction with the League and Dota audience, and that it never really got its fair shake. You can make those claims, and you know what? You might be right. But the fact remains, Heroes of the Storm ultimately went the way of the dodo bird. Blizzard was in the driver's seat of that one. And that's that. Not really much else you could take away from that. That's their track record. You look at WCS, StarCraft. Yeah, StarCraft, challenging game to watch for some. I don't think it is all that challenging, but it is a difficult game to play, especially at a high level. Maybe not that challenging to watch, but again, WCS, it's been all right. For a game like StarCraft, which is the granddaddy, the pinnacle of esports, all right is not good enough. Hearthstone, another one. It's been up and down, up and down. And then you look at Overwatch. And I'll be very honest with you all. When the league first started, when this idea was being pitched all around the boardrooms, I was working at Twitch at the time. And I thought to myself, this is not going to work. And I know that may seem a little shocking given how much love and how much investment I've put into my personal time into this league as a fan, as a host, even as a caster at one point. And I thought to myself, it just would not work. People would just not be invested in the city-based format. And I was wrong. And I'm glad to be wrong because I want this to succeed. But there are a lot of people out there who say that if Overwatch League were to fail, it can set back esports. Is it going to end esports? Is it going to do the damage that CGS did to esports? No. I don't believe that. I don't believe what a lot of people are saying out there. I hate to call out my buddy Scoots. I love him to death. He's a mentor to me and just someone I respect dearly. But, when he says on Twitter that if Overwatch League fails, it affects all of esports, I think that it has an impact, but it is not one that creates a dent rather than a crater, in my opinion. And that's because esports as a whole is so strong. Look no further than League of Legends, just signing a deal today with Bud Light. Bud Light now the official alcoholic beverage of the League of Legends Championship Series. That is awesome. That is mind-blowing. And Bud Light was also a sponsor of the Overwatch League. So it goes to show you that clearly these non-endemics are still investing in the space. But if Overwatch League sets back, I think that just reflects poorly on Blizzard in the long run and sets them back a couple steps rather than setting back Riot or Valve. To kind of spin it in a positive way, and I'm going to be very frank with everyone, I think that Call of Duty for Activision might actually be a home run. I know that this may sound a little weird. And in full transparency, I have spoken to Call of Duty about working their events in the past. There has been conversations, but I'm saying this purely because of the audience that exists, the install base that is there, and the way of which they can approach sponsors. Because if Bud Light wants to get involved in a mature rated game, Call of Duty is probably the right way to go. If Bud Light can sponsor the Overwatch League, there's no world where Bud Light can't sponsor Call of Duty. Now, I know to some of you that may be like, well, do they want to? Do they want to sponsor Call of Duty? And that makes perfect sense because, again, the game features violence, real guns, and I think that in itself is going to be an issue that Call of Duty runs into over the next few years as this league continues to grow and establish. But again, you would think that this would have happened to Counter-Strike, but it didn't. Counter-Strike still continues to thrive, and I may even go as far as to say that it is the number one esport that's out there. Maybe some League of Legends fans would disagree with me. They might be right. They probably are. But hey, you can't argue with the fact that Counter-Strike has continued to be a dominant presence in this industry for such a long time now. And it's a game that features real guns, violence, and yet it still thrives. So clearly Call of Duty can also follow in the footsteps of Counter-Strike with the install base that it has, with it being on PC, with it being on consoles, being a game and a brand that is pretty much known throughout the world, just like Halo, League of Legends, Fortnite. It's a huge brand. So there's no reason why people don't want to associate themselves with a big brand like that. Going back to Jacob's point and what he was saying before, I don't disagree with him. I don't think he's wrong. And honestly, he has every right to talk about it the way that he did. One, because, it's his opinion. He could say whatever he wants to say. And two, the Overwatch community has a really hard time taking negative feedback. It's rough, but they don't mind giving negative feedback outward. And this probably wasn't going to be something I wanted to talk about, but I think I am going to talk about it anyway, because it does kind of sort of shine a light on, and at times, a hypocrisy that can exist within the Overwatch community. When you see your friends announce a departure from a league that you'd worked on for a while now and something that you care about, so much, it's really rough to see people who don't know these individuals, never came out to a homestand, or never went out to, Bala, the Blizzard Arena, Los Angeles, didn't go to the grand finals, and really just speak poorly on the commentators and the hosts and the individuals that poured so much love into the league. And you see them just bash them. And granted, I know that is more than likely in the minority, but that's also the group that is out there defending the Overwatch League with sword and shield in hand, looking to charge straight into battle. And you can't have your cake and eat it too when it comes to this stuff. Some people left the league because they didn't like the direction it was going in. To give you context on my decision, I didn't sign with the league as a full-time talent because, to be frank, I just had no desire to move to LA. I made that abundantly clear to Blizzard. I made that abundantly clear to my management team. The offer was there. I just didn't want to go to LA. I had just moved back from San Francisco. I was enjoying my life in New York with my wife. I just didn't want to go back. If there was something that I could do to make it work, which ultimately we did, I would do it. But nope, not moving, right? That was my choice. I made a decision. It's not because I didn't like the league, or didn't like the fans, or didn't like the game, or whatever. It's just, at the end of the day, we're all human, and we got to make decisions for ourselves. And that's what a lot of the talent that departed, that's what a lot of them are doing. They're making decisions for themselves, moves for themselves. I can't argue with it. I can't blame them. Hey, when it's all said and done, the only thing that you got is yourself and your ability to work in this business. I think that there just needs to be an understanding and a little bit of a give and take on the Overwatch community side here, that, yeah, sure, people may be angry about the league. People may say negative things about the league, but that doesn't mean people hate the league. I think generally everyone wants the league to succeed because they don't want to see Blizzard fail. People love Blizzard. They have, and they always will. World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, StarCraft, Warcraft, Overwatch. They love Blizzard. They love the games that they produce, and they want to see them succeed. So I think with that being said, this kind of segues into an interesting topic that we're going to have here today. We're going to talk to Flame from the Houston Outlaws to get his thoughts on his squad, on their 2019 season, and how they can turn things around for the 2020 season. What are some of the changes that they made? It's going to be a good conversation. Stick around. It's going to be a long one as well. Haven't decided if I'm going to give you guys the full interview, if I'm going to edit a little bit of it. If I do edit it, I will probably upload the full interview. But if I give you guys the full interview, well, I hope you're ready for a really long episode of That Esports Podcast. And as always, there's news to discuss all around the world of esports. Let's jump into it. Shifting gears for a little bit, let's talk about the world of Super Smash Brothers. As Glitch 8 concluded this weekend, and there were a lot of huge moments there. Most notably, though, huge shout out to Tweak taking first place over Dark Wizzy in the grand finals over a bracket reset. When you talk about Super Smash Brothers, every single game, every single moment is intense and awesome, and that is why, while this was a major event, there's another huge event coming next week, and that is going to be Genesis 7 in Oakland, California. Nearly 1,700 entrants for Super Smash Brothers. It continues to remain a strong powerhouse in the world of esports. And if you want to check that out, Genesis 7 in Oakland, California. If you're in the Oakland area, you can find out more at genesisgaming.gg. Let's see how that event is going to pan out and who is going to come out on top. And then in FIFA news, we had the FUT Champions Cup Stage 3 finals take place, and notable player Nicolas was eliminated early in the group stages. And that is really shocking considering how strong of a player he is on the PS4 side. Another strong player and probably one of the most well-known FIFA players right now, Fnatic Tex, continued to show his strong performance through the group stages, but ultimately was sent home by Rasik in the quarterfinals.
Mbappe for Tex. Is he going to go the same way again? And it's saved by the boots of Alisson.
Cristiano Ronaldo. Will he be sending Tex home? Yes, he will, as Rasik takes the victory against Tex here. FUT Champs Cup #2 champion will advance on into the quarterfinals, but we will be saying goodbye to Tex. What a game between these two. And they just couldn't break the deadlock between each other.
Always a heartbreaking way to be eliminated from the competition.
In the console finals, we had Umet take it 2-1 against Tom, and then Olieto 2-1 against Diogo. When they met up, though, in the cross-console finals, it would be Olieto who wins 4-3 over Umet, and that was the Xbox player taking home the top prize, and Olieto winning his first major.
Could be going all the way back to the keeper, but he might just keep the pressure on. Hullet will win it. He can't keep it in. Oh, the hopes and dreams of the Germans dying in front of us. Olieto, the man from Sweden, he is going to do it. Olieto, here we go again. My, can anybody beat you? Not the dancing queen, but the FIFA king on the stage. He is your cross-console champion here at FUT Champs Cup in Atlanta.
Activision has announced that Call of Duty League team skins are going to be coming to Modern Warfare, and that will be launching on January 24th, right in time for the launch of the Call of Duty League. They showed off some concepts for the Minnesota Rocker, and the skins look pretty good. You'll be able to get some skins in-game, as well as some charms and a watch for your character, as well as the camos, and I'm sure a lot of fans are going to be enjoying those skins when they come out. I know that I will personally be picking up the New York Subliners one because you gotta rock the yellow and blue. An update is going to be coming to Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Slide canceling is going to be patched, and here's the thing. While it is great that they're going to be taking out this mechanic, it is unfortunate that it will be happening just shy of the launch of the Call of Duty League, and hopefully Activision and Infinity Ward can synergize a little bit more on when those patches come out, because historically Call of Duty has struggled in the past with releasing patches when they probably shouldn't. So let's hope that this does not affect the competition too much. Despite that, though, the Call of Duty League will launch this weekend, and the first games will take place with the Chicago Huntsmen versus the Dallas Empire. Two powerhouse teams are going to go toe-to-toe against each other this Saturday, and you're not going to want to miss it. Also, as a side note, I want to give a huge shout-out to my friends Big Timer and Puckett, who will be launching a new podcast starting Tuesday, which is actually the day that I will be recording this. Their podcast is going to be live. It's called Codtacular and focuses purely on Call of Duty esports. Give them a listen when you can at twitch.tv/Puckett. And now over to some Counter-Strike news now, as Fnatic will make it quote-unquote official with Golden. They've had a lot of success with him in the roster, and we all knew that this was inevitable given the success that they've had. And the full roster now will be JW, Crims, Brolin, Flusha, Golden, and Samuelson as the coach. But that's not all we got treated to, as an announcement just came out today from Dignitas. They're going to be bringing back the former NIP roster, Get Right, Freiburg, Exist, and Forest, coached by Faflaren, and they're adding in Halzerk, the Norwegian player. He's going to be an interesting addition for this team, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they could do. But most importantly, I'm pumped for my boy Robin to be coaching his boys. I think it's going to be a great time, and the Dignitas organization have really shown that they are behind this team through and through. I'm pumped to see what they could do in CS. Next stop, Overwatch. As the season kicks off in New York City, February 8th, a lot of people are very much looking forward to seeing what the Overwatch League can do in its third season. For some, it's make or break. Mostly the fans feel as if this is going to be a huge determining season for the Overwatch League. For folks like myself, I'm looking forward to just seeing some Overwatch again, because let's be honest, it's been a hot minute, there's been a drought, and I just want to watch some competition. Now, one team that hasn't really been competing all that much over the last few seasons, unfortunately, was the Houston Outlaws. They came into the league with a lot of hype. They were the only squad to have a full NA roster. They really were pushing that they were a team that the fans can get behind, and they did. Houston Outlaws has a massive fan base, and at that time, they were ran by Optic Gaming, who was one of the most well-recognized, well-respected, and most loved organizations in all of esports. But time has changed. Optic Gaming, as we know it, is no more, now under the Immortals Gaming Club. Infinite Esports sold everything to IGC, and we all know that Infinite Esports certainly did not have a good run running the green wall. This would lead to a lot of fan resentment, as the Optic Gaming organization now will be representing the great city of Los Angeles, but it will not have the names such as Scump or Hex or Crim6 or Karma that we all know and love. Instead, that is going to be a conversation, though, for another day. While all that was going on, one team was struggling through that, and that was the Houston Outlaws. Because as we all know, Immortals Gaming Club has their team, the LA Valiant, and they needed to support not one, but two Overwatch League teams during the sale, and they had to support them independently. And that made things very challenging for the person that I'm interviewing here today. He's a good friend of mine, and he's someone that I've known for quite a while in the Overwatch space, and was one of the individuals that really gave me a lot of knowledge, just a lot of know-how on how to get involved in this community that I really, really enjoyed watching from afar. And when I finally had that moment to do so, he was right there to help me out along the way. Without further ado, here's Flame, the general manager of the Houston Outlaws. I'm now joined by the Houston Outlaws general manager, good friend of mine, one Matt Rodriguez, aka Flame. Flame, it is a pleasure to have you here on That Esports Podcast. It has been a long time since you and I have worked together in the such good days of the Overwatch World Cup. Traveling the world, man.
It's a good way to meet some people, you know. Oh, what was your first interaction with Alex Goldenboy Mendez? Well, we were in a hotel in Australia. It was very beautiful. We had a casino to ourselves.
You stayed in a room with me and my wife?
Oh, yeah, I did. I forgot about that.
You did.
Because they were like, I forget what happened. I forget how that happened. I just remember it was silly.
They didn't book your room. I don't think they booked your room in the same hotel where we were located or something like that. And then I remember seeing you there like a lost puppy, some giant muscular lost puppy. And I was like, man, let me just help a brother.
No, I
out
think they
over
like
here.
put me in a room with like production staff or something.
No,
it was something weird.
You did not have a room.
Are you sure?
You did not. I'm 100%.
I thought I had a room shared with someone that was like bizarre.
You were going to have a room, but it was not available yet. And I believe
I'll take your word. I'll take your word.
Cynthia just came into the room and said that that's exactly what happened. So you were going to have a room, but it wasn't available for like the next day or something, or hours or something. We were just exhausted because we had just came. Were you with us in China? I believe you were with us in China.
I was.
That's
I
right.
Got stuck. Remember?
That's right. Oh my God. Yeah. So there you go.
It's a little bit of a traumatizing
experience. That's what I'm saying. You're saying we first met in Australia. No, we first met in China.
Yeah, we did.
But because China was so hot, we just forgot about everything, and that's basically been it.
I don't even think about it. It's like an alternate universe.
It's a whole new world, man. It really is. Well,
and then while waiting for BlizzCon, I got hired to take this job, and I was like, should I take this job or should I continue casting?
That's right. And I remember you talking to me about, potentially doing this because it was like a good opportunity to work with your friends, and also it was just a good opportunity overall. And I think looking back on it, I think it was a good call. No,
I agree.
So general manager of Houston Outlaws now for since the beginning, which you've seen it all. It's been a wild ride for you guys. I think the only player on you have two players, right? I think it's Muma and Boink are the only original.
No, Raucus Linkser.
Raucus, that's right. I'm sorry, Raucus. Oh yeah, and Linkser from Giganti.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, You're right. So 4 players plus you. And you have
now you're making me double check. I still have Spree.
Well, Spree was Spree there? Yeah, actually, you know what? Then I take everything I say back. You are not the only player left. You're not the only person left. I take everything I say back.
There's a lot of us left.
History has not been kind to me. So obviously, Houston Outlaws last season had a bit of a rough going. You guys finished 16th overall. Kind of felt as if the community was really dogpiling on you guys, especially when I would go on Reddit or when I would see conversation circle on Twitter. One, do you think that was like fair considering all the things that happened with the team? But also too, do you feel like there was also just things working against you guys, like the meta and stuff like that as well?
I mean, it was definitely fair, right? Like, you can't get mad at fans for someone like having a bad season. Like, it's like, or like a subpar season, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like every team has their excuses, right? Every team has their reasons. I mean, I do think we had a lot more reasons maybe than other teams. Like, that's hindsight, I guess. Like, I can't fix that. And like, you can't, I don't think I read much Reddit last year. There's actually like big stints. I think like the first, I read Reddit a lot. Now I remember what went on in year one. I just remember there was like a point in time where I was like, I can't read this anymore. It's driving me crazy. And then year two, I like didn't read it at all. And then I only like just started recently reading it. The players have experienced it probably more than I have in some capacity, but like the mental health versus like reading social media kind of aspect of the job is something that I don't think I fully grasped until this year. You like notice when you're in the mood and you're like, oh yeah, I'm like, life's good. I can read Reddit. I don't care what these people say. And then there's like the points in time where you're like, oh my God, my life is terrible. Everything's awful. These people are right. Like,
why did I do this to myself?
Yeah, so why am I reading this?
Yeah. I get it. It's rough. I think especially when you came into the league, I think with a lot of hype and a lot of positivity, as you should. It was the beginning of the Overwatch League. Why wouldn't anyone be excited? I think there were a lot of high hopes, and I remember explicitly there was an interview, I think it was with Jake and Raucus, where and I don't remember who said this, but he was like, the goal is to just not lose a stage. Again, there was just a lot of hype in between that, and it just did not really work out the way that you all hoped. Looking back on it too, though, there was also just a lot of growth from the players, which was something that I noticed. The players just constantly trying to find new ways to try and improve themselves, right? And I think one of the players that I have to give the most love to, and I think where I'm going, is Spree, because he's like just this always positive dude. It was very well documented in the 2018 season how much he was just like that, the quote unquote sixth man, or the seventh man in this case, just being like very positive, trying to uplift everyone. And that's important. I mean,
Spree's just like I don't know, he's like an edge case. It's like people will ask to like trade for him, or like, I'm interested in Spree, and like it's like no, like even if he's not playing, he's just he does bring like this extra sense of like, you just want him there. Like if you're a player, you just want him on your team. Like, oh, I need to practice. Oh, I'll go load up with you. Oh, you guys want to do a queue? I'll do a queue with you. Like he like never says no to playing with like a teammate, and he never like, even when he's at his like most like, I guess, lowest mental state, he's still aware and like trying to keep it positive and like asking for help to keep it positive, versus like some players I think will like shelter, their emotions. He's like very open about it. It's just like so easy to work with. It's crazy. But I agree. He's one of those like unsung heroes, I think, of this team.
You have made some changes this season, brought in some fresh faces, quite a few. As a matter of fact, starting at the top, really, I think one of the more notable additions for you guys has to be Hydration, coming from, the Los Angeles Gladiators. Hydration had so much hype built around him in 2018, 2019, continued on, to perform well. What was it about getting a player like Hydration on the team that, what kind of gap were you guys looking to fill with this player?
The Jake leave wasn't, it wasn't like we didn't know it was happening, right? Like I knew it was happening before way before the off season. So it was more like that role. You never know. And then Hydration actually had like a lot of main tank offers. So like there was never a world where signing Hydration was bad, because he'd played Lucio on stage, he'd played DPS on stage, and then he was like maining main tank for like most of the off season. Like I think he had like 3 or 4 offers to play main tank on like other Owl teams. He was like an early signing, but he was like one of those signings that like, it's like a wild card. Like you don't need to play that card, but you always have that card. Mm-hmm. And so like going into the roster construction, it was just like a good pickup, because there was no downside to it. Like there was never going to be a time where there was a hero he couldn't play or a meta he couldn't be usable in or like a person he couldn't back up, because he just like plays the game like at such a ridiculously high level across every single role that you knew you were going to get, you know, something out of him. In terms of how he fits in the team, I think that there's like a lot of good dynamics between like him and Dante and Muma and the Koreans. Like, I mean, he fits in really well with the culture too. I think he's probably one of the quieter ones, and maybe that's something that we have to work on, is like, not like in a comms way, just in like a, you know, normal human being everyday way. You have like your, you have your Dantes, then you have your hydrations. That's like kind of,
that's
the edge of the spectrum.
Well, that's
you know?
the spectrum. Let it be known. It is the quiet hydration to whatever Dante is.
Whatever Dante is.
And you just go with that.
Whatever we call that.
But you also made some other big changes too. You know, bringing in Meko from the NYXL. He played there 2 seasons. You know, I think a lot of people in New York loved him, but you know, you guys saw an opportunity and, you know, nabbed him. What does Meko change up here for this tank lineup with, you know, because I know you said hydration can also, you know, do that role too of potential, but now you have Meko and you also have Muma. So you have 2 pretty, you know, darn good main tank players. What is that dynamic going to be like?
I mean, I think Meko is used to playing more of like a passive tank role, like off tank role. Like he was like known for his diva back when diva was like not
That's
really
true.
this
Yeah,
like
you're
flashy hero. He was just like a very solid, you know, player. And then Muma's kind of like the YOLO, getting everyone's kind of face and like, you know, play a very greedy main tank style where like he's kind of soaking up resources, like eating health packs, asking for heals. And I think Meko's like more of the passive. So dynamic between them is actually pretty good on paper. I haven't really heard or seen any reason to think that their like synergy is going to be bad or anything.
Yeah,
I'm actually really impressed with Meko's English. Actually all the Koreans English, to be honest with you, because I know Harsha obviously has like worked with Korean teams before, so he's got some experience typing and like using the keyboard and the shortcuts and, you know, whatever translation program that he uses when he needs it. But I actually try my best not to do that with them, and I think that, and they actually get mad at me if I use a translator, which I think is really good. They'll be like, why are you, you know, why are you using a translator? Talk to me, like, just talk to me in English, like I'll figure it out. And I think that's like a good attitude to have for them. I'm like glad that everyone's like super into it and just like down to communicate. I guess there hasn't really felt like there's a language barrier.
And you're gonna need that. You're gonna need that with Muma and Meko.
Well, so you want to hear a funny story, actually?
Go for it.
So the way Meko, the way we got, I wasn't looking at Meko. Like Meko was not like a person that was like on my radar.
Really?
My social media coordinator messaged me, hey, I got this message on Facebook. It was Meko's agent messaging the Outlaws Facebook account, asking for a contact to like get in contact with Meko. And I was like, is this a troll? Is there just some guy messaging me on Facebook? And don't get me wrong, Meko's agent is like one of the best agents I've ever had the privilege of working with. And like, I can, you know,
it was just the initial contact, you know, it was just,
but he was new to esports. And so he wasn't like super, you know, well-versed in like, oh, I'll go on Twitter, I'll go find this guy's email on, you know, whatever website. I won't go talk to this guy because he's not like super well networked. So, but their first thing was like, he went to Facebook, and then that was how that started. I was like, I'll follow up because, you know, I mean, it's a good conversation to have. Like if Meko actually wants to join the Outlaws, like I'm down to like, you know, explore that option.
Did you
actually set on it?
Yeah. I was going to ask, did you think that would ever be an option? Like to get a player like Meko?
Initially, no. And then as time went on, because like initially I think we were like, do we want to do a mixed roster because it's hard, and then we didn't know what the staffing situation was going to be, because if you can't get a good Korean coach with Korean players, it's like pretty difficult, I think, to get everyone on the same page. Like Harsh is like obviously capable, but any language barrier is a bad language barrier in some capacity when it comes to coaching, because you don't want the coach's you know, thoughts to not get fully explained or thrown out. So it was like, if we can't get a good Korean coach, can we hire Korean players? And then I think eventually we hit a point where we were looking at like the market of free agents and who was available, at least in like those roles, like support and off tank. And then we were like, well, if we get Meko, we need to get, you know, someone else. We can't just like have a lone Korean coming on the team, because it would just be hard. Like, you don't want to be like the only Korean in Houston, like, you know, with the team, or like, you know, living wherever you live. It was like every time that we would think about Meko, it was like, okay, well now we need this, we need this, we need this, we need to like worry about coaching. It's a lot of what's the word? Like you're like playing like this weird game of like social engineering in some capacity of like, how is this player gonna coexist? How is this player gonna adapt? Who's gonna be friends with this player? Who's gonna like you know, you want to make sure that everyone's like living a normal life and not feeling excluded or anything, which I think was like probably somewhat of a problem last year with the team. There was just a lot of like caution that had to be made.
Fair,
But it wound
fair.
up working, I guess. Like
When you
eventually we were
guys-
like, you know, we're doing it.
When you guys got Meko, then what was that next step? Was it to look for a Korean support, you know, to really be there for him? So, you know, you had your options kind of presented to you. Was that the idea, to have someone that he can just like synergize with when need be?
So he was like, you know, here's my thoughts on, you know, everything. And then one of his like concerns was like, I think we need, you know, another Korean. And I think if you guys need another Korean support, because at that point Vanny was for the most part gone. He was like, if you guys are looking for supports, I think a Korean support would like fit well. And we were like, okay, I mean, that makes sense. And like, obviously we weren't opposed to it. And so we started looking around at like Korean supports, and then we waited. And like, it was kind of stressful, I think, because eventually hit a point where it's like, everything's taking really long. And like, you never know what a player is going to do. Like at any point in time, Meko could have been like, oh, I'm going to go sign here. I'm going to go sign there. He obviously had other offers, but we just wound up hitting this point where like Rappel came in, and then Rappel was like perfect because it's like he had worked with Harsha, so Harsha knew him, he knew Harsha, he trusted Harsha. It's like building teams now is like very trust based. I think that there's a lot of teams that like lose players because they don't trust the people in charge of it.
Yeah.
And so that's like one of the things I like kind of pride myself on, is that like that hasn't really happened to me, despite all the, I don't know, like infrastructure problems that the Outlaws have clearly had.
Yeah.
That people are still like kind of trusting of the brand and the people.
Well, I mean,
But that
because you
kinda
guys
just
have been in
worked
it since
out.
the beginning.
Yeah.
You and Harsha, you both have been
Around.
involved in competitive Overwatch since the, you know, monthly Melee days in chats, right? Like, you know, trolling ZP and Hex as they casted, and ZP's terrible observing, which he thinks is great, but I'll never tell him that to his face, but he's probably going to hear it anyway. But yeah, you know, like I, to be fair, he was a pretty good observer, but I just like to bust his balls. That being said, though, there's a certain kind of trust that has to happen in order for a team to coexist and function. You know, you mentioned something interesting about the disruption, I guess, of the Outlaws franchise, the Outlaws brand. You guys did go through a lot. Infinite Esports kind of, you know, fell apart, sold Optic and the Outlaws to the Immortals Gaming Club. Immortals Gaming Club then had a really peculiar situation where they had to support the LA Valiant and support the Houston Outlaws as two separate entities, even though the Valiant is their team. Well, technically the Outlaws were their team too, but you know what I mean. How challenging was that, man? Because that's for you as a general manager, I can only imagine how mentally draining that initially could have been, because there's just so much uncertainty in the air.
So what's weird is I think Infinite was stressful for like different reasons, right? Like Infinite had like, I actually really liked the initial group of people that I was working with at Infinite when I got hired. You had like Cheney, you had like Muscleman, obviously like like Hector was there too, and like obviously what went down. But like initially it started off great. I was like, oh, this is cool. These people are awesome. Like I trust these people. Things are gonna go well. And like I mean, even year one we had a lot of like money for budget. Like there were a lot of marketing events where we spent way too much money, obviously.
Yeah.
And then things kind of went down. I think that was the most stressful, was like seeing, you know, leadership get like cut, like get the head cut off, and then the ripple effect of like, okay, now we have to like save money on this, and then like your roster starts becoming more stagnant.
Yeah.
And then so season 2, one of the biggest criticisms was like they didn't make enough changes. But like from my perspective, it was like if I cut someone or if I release someone, there was no guarantee I was getting the budget to replace them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make perfect sense.
So then you wind up keeping everybody that you can, because you don't know that you can get anything in return.
You have to field a freaking team at the end of the day.
So
you know?
it's like, in my head, it just makes sense. I also think I don't want to go on this tangent too much, but I do think it's really hard to like release too many players and also build a franchise at the same time. I think a lot of teams have like made a lot of turnover, but it's like hard to grow a fan base if you like have 12 new players after 3 years, right?
Totally agree with that.
There's value there somewhere. Point being, that year was actually more stressful than year 2. Year 2 was like we got sold and everything was bad. But from like a management perspective, there wasn't management. It was just like me on an island for a very, very, very long time. And somehow that was like easier for me to deal with than like feeling like I had to like report to people who weren't, you know, on my side all the time. And so I actually didn't mind last year from like a managerial perspective, but like obviously the team didn't perform as well as they could have. But I think a lot of that also was just like the stress it's one thing for the stress to be on me, and then there's another thing for like the coaches and the players And if you don't have the resources to like directly, I don't know what the word is, stop the stress or address it, then it just gets out of control. And then once like one or two people hit like a very bad point of depression or like mental anxiety, it's like really hard to get out.
Yeah.
Like you don't really have time to, catch yourself when you're falling during the Overwatch League season.
I mean, dude, you shouldered a lot of that stress as a general manager. You kind of had to be the umbrella for them to just like try and stop as much of that, negativity and frustration and anger and sadness and uncertainty from affecting the players. I mean, and that's not an easy thing to do, honestly. I don't even think the best psychiatrists can manage to do that for the amount of players you had on your team. So I totally understand. Another thing, though, that did happen is that, Jake left. I think that for a lot of people, I know I had an opportunity to work with Jake at the Overwatch World Cup 2 years ago. Went to South Korea with him and then worked with him again at BlizzCon, or not worked with him, but I did, get to be, alongside the whole crew at BlizzCon. I kind of saw the writing on the wall that like, eventually he was going to want to go this route because it comes with its own separate set of stresses, as as a former talent, this, but there's also that stress of being a player. Did you think that after that World Cup it was going to happen? Because he stayed on another year to play. Did you think that the writing was on the wall that year when he did the Overwatch World Cup? Or did you think that there was going to be maybe a little bit more distance out of Jake? He's still very young, still very talented. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I don't want to rag on Jake or like, say anything like too,
of course,
questionable. But I think like as someone who came from talent had like its own problems, right? Like there's so many different intricacies. Like you just mentioned, like my job is the umbrella. Like there's a level of like stress and there's a level of, dedication required to like be that umbrella. But then there's also like the level of stress. It's like different stress, right? Like that's stress because I feel like I have to like protect all these people and like, shelter them from all this terrible stuff that's happening that they don't like, you don't want them to know about it or like have to deal with it. So like you just kind of eat it for them versus like talent stress, which is like more, did I piss off this person this week? Did I offend this person on social media? Is someone mad because I said XYZ and like, is that going to affect my career? And like, I mean, I think I've grown obviously since we worked together, like 2017.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of that is a byproduct of this job, beating me down to a pulp and then, bringing me back out of the ashes of this dead phoenix. But
oh my,
it's like
very brutal. Okay.
I mean, it's been a rough 3 years, but
I understand.
Back to the point of, I think that like, if you're Jake, it's a different conversation. It's like, which one has like more longevity? And I never had a player mentality when it came to Overwatch, so I never really would ever think of like, and when I was playing video games and esports, it wasn't like a thing you could just go do.
Yeah.
So I think like from a career path perspective, it makes a lot of sense to want to be a caster if you're a player because you can get years out of casting. I mean, there's people in their like into their 40s that are still doing esports events casting. But my point is like, I think for him, it's like if I can get on this boat now, or like it's an opportunistic job, right? It's like not everyone gets their opportunity. There's a lot of people who push to be casters or do commentary or even grow on Twitch that like never get their their golden ticket to start. And so I think when you're handed that opportunity, is like an opportunity that you might not get later. Like who knows what Jake's life would have been without Overwatch, right? Like the guy was playing TF2 on a MacBook Pro a couple of years ago. It's like, you got to shoot your shots.
That's ain't that the truth, man? I don't know. I totally agree. So you guys had that inclination, which is why you said earlier you were planning, and then you were able to snag a multi-talented player like Hydration to kind of fill that void. And do you feel like, though, because there was a interesting like headline that I saw on Reddit that kind of caught my eye from a plat chat, which I'll never give Sideshow credit for any of his content because it's terrible, but including the foreheads, which is my podcast too. It was said that Houston have improved a lot in the offseason, but are they actually good? Do you feel like the changes that you guys have made, bringing in Jexa, Repel, Hydration, Blase, getting Harsha in there now, do you feel like that this 2020, home and away games, being able to play in front of your home team, do you feel like this is finally going to be that coming out party for the Houston Outlaws, that big moment for you guys where it's like all this hard work, this entire grind, it's led to this? Do you feel like this is the team that could do it?
Yeah, I mean, okay, it's hard to like, you don't want to predict yourself, like, I don't want to curse myself right now or jinx the
Sure, we'll knock on the wood right now.
We're gonna do great, everything's gonna be fantastic. But like, I guess I guess one of the weirdest things to me about all of the analysis, I guess, on the team is that like it ignores a lot of like very like it ignores a lot of things that happened last year that like never got talked about, or just like weird dynamics that just don't exist anymore. So I guess like one of them is like Blase. I think Blase had like a very good stage or two on Boston where he was playing Brig. And then he was like owning. Like I actually thought last year he was like one of the best Western Brigs. Like he might have been the best Western Brig at some point during Overwatch League last year. But then he got like, yoinked off it and put on Diva. And so like when I was given the opportunity to take Blase, I had heard good things about it. I know a lot about him, and I know a lot of players had played with him on ladder and like, you know, had been friends with him. He wasn't like a super high profile player in the Overwatch League in general. But when I picked him, when he got here, I was like why is this kid like how did I strike this like diamond in the rough almost? Like he's like such a good teammate, and he's like super professional. He's like super easy to talk to, and he's like very down to earth, and it's like refreshing in a way, I guess. Not that all the Outlaws aren't like that, but
yeah, no, I
you know,
get it,
it's like he's a lot more
well, you get a new voice in there.
Yeah, but it's like some of the players, like he's not an ego player. He's not someone that's gonna like, you know, make you have to break him a little bit to like get him to listen to you. Like sometimes when you argue with Raucus, you end up like going down this path of like, God help me. But like that doesn't happen with Jeff. And but like so like a player like him is just like a stable, you know, rock for the team. And he brings a lot of the communication, I think, that like maybe Jake had that everyone talks about, like the leadership qualities.
So he's kind of like a Spree, you know, like Spree was also in that same boat, right? Where he was like that stable, like you just rely on Spree, you know, it's just that voice.
Jeff just has like this aura of like calmness to his like panic. Even in like the most stressful situations, or like the most like high pressure. I mean, I'm obviously just talking about scrim results or like scrim, but he's not someone that jumps the gun or gets too emotional. He's like very, you know,
keeps his cool,
practical when it comes to his problem solving. So like he's like a big dynamic that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. And then having players like Meko, I think like a player like of the caliber of Meko that like everyone respects and everyone thinks that he's a great player.
Yeah, it
like adds an aura to the other players on the team. Like I don't want to let this guy down. This guy just like signed on to the Outlaws. Like he's down to be my teammate. Like I need to be the best teammate I can for him. That's an aspect that goes unlooked. Like when you keep the same roster for 2 years, you kind of get these like bad habits of like, you know, I can show up late to practice. I've been late before. Now Meko and Repeller here, you don't want to look like the idiot that showed up late a couple days this month, or, you know, like it puts this extra pressure on you to like perform in a way that isn't something that's like obvious, or, you know, you're not going to think about it unless you're a player. And so like that's another dynamic that's added. And I think one of the weirdest things to me is like the amount of like criticism people have on Harsha. As someone who had made content, like a lot of analytical content for Overwatch Overwatch League, I wasn't really watching anyone else's content, right? Like at that point, it was just like kind of me and a couple other people. I don't even think Jane like existed at that point.
Yeah.
And so he was maybe on the up. Like I know when someone like knows what they're talking about, I guess in like my vacuum of understanding the game, and like when, same with like Dream, it's like the two of them are like very competent and the players like respect them a lot. And I think like respect was something that like diminished throughout the year last year with Tyrong, and that's like not a knock on Tyrong. It's just like how things went. Like Tyrong, everyone got really stressed. Everyone was like losing, and, you know, morale's down. My workload from like a coaching perspective has like diminished this year, which is like new. Like it's like great for me, right? Like I get to focus on the stuff that, you know, maybe is a little bit more managerial and high level, and I don't have to like think about what the players are like, what their scrims are doing or what comps they're running this year. And so like I've seen how Dream and Harsha interact with the players and how they coach, and I'm like in all the Discord chats that they're in, and like I sit in on like some of the scrims because I'm just like, I'll watch, you know, like this will be fun. I'm not like giving criticism or like telling anyone how to do their job or even like giving feedback to anybody. From my perspective, it's just like night and day. It's like this year is just so much better in like every way, in terms of like how things are going, at least up to this point. From my perspective, everything is just better. The question of like, have they improved? It's like morale's improved. I think team skills improved. I think team direction's improved. I think coaching's improved. I think, you know, structure's improved. I have a lot more help myself, so that's improved. Like there's just a lot more people to help out. There's a lot more people to ask questions. There's like even the people on staff that aren't coaches are still ex-players, and like they can help in different ways that not every team has the luxury of.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so, like,
Cool Matt made a change too, which is like
Yeah.
huge. For the longest time, I mean, how many times in a cast do you hear Cool Matt regarded one of the best divas out there, right? And I think that's actually pretty awesome that he retired into a coaching role, because hey, he's got a lot to offer. He's a really smart cat, and he just has the hair of a god. So clearly, you want that kind of product in your.
Well, so he's not even coaching. Neither is like people think Clockwork's coaching. Clockwork's not coaching either.
He's not.
It's just no. Cool Matt just wants to like create like a longevity plan for himself. So he's going into like ops and stuff that like I need help with, or
interesting,
my events people need help with, like marketing stuff, so that he can like get a resume going. Like,
so everyone just
I think
assumed
he's like
coaching.
Everyone assumes Clockwork's coaching, which is weird. Clockwork's doing a lot more like player manager stuff, like like whatever, travel and helping them out with like their day to day and whatever needs they have, and like assistance, I guess is the best word to put it. And then Cool Matt like wants to grow his resume and like start a career in esports, because I don't think player level stuff is like really in. I don't know. I don't think he like wants that path of like dealing with players. I think he's had enough of it.
Fine. Yeah.
Which is fine. But like one of the things that I think people call it whatever. It's like the career longevity of the Outlaws is like a weird topic, right? Because like the people who quit, there's very few people who have quit the Outlaws that didn't have a job after, or like found a job after. That's one of the things that like I kind of pride myself on in a way, is like helping them find work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't personally like push Banny to become a coach, right? I didn't like give anyone like the nod, but when someone comes to me and is like, hey, would you recommend this person? Like, I'm going to say yes, right? And like, give them the honest truth. I think another thing that's overlooked in esports, and I think Monty's one of those people that recently was like talking about it, like I will make sacrifices to like, further the betterment of esports. I mean, everyone has their own take on what that means and how to do that. But I think for me, my personal goal is just like get as many competent, truthful, respectful people to like be working in esports at any point in time, because it just makes the whole industry better. If there's like in a world of bad eggs, the more good eggs, the better, right? And like Cool Matt's a good egg, so it's like if there was a point where I could get him a job and like help him grow his career path, and like that's something that's in my best interest as someone in the industry going forward. And it's in everyone. I mean, it's in your best interest in some capacity. Like, who knows, in 10 years maybe Cool might be working as the director of something, and you'll be like, hey, I need a gig here. I don't know, maybe he'll call you. Like, you never know, right?
Yeah.
And so, but like people like him, I think really deserve to stay around, and like you want them around. And that's just like kind of how I've been operating.
That's awesome.
Because I don't think everyone's going to be sticking with the Outlaws in the next 2 years, but I think that they'll have the ability to go, do whatever or explore other paths. And
yeah,
that's important to me.
I think that's great, man. And that's also just awesome too. Because I agree with you. More good eggs, the better. That's always important. Well, I mean, this obviously went like way longer than I had thought, but it's always good to talk to you, dude. So finally, first homestand is going to be coming up in February. Pretty exciting stuff. What is it, like February 20? Forget the date.
Put me on the spot right now.
Oh my goodness gracious! I'm just gonna have to go look it up right now. That's what I'm gonna do. Because the general February 29th.
I know what week it is. I know what week. I don't know what date it is.
Does that mean it's a leap year? Because the 29th?
It is.
It is a leap year.
There will never be a homestand on that date for another 4 years.
Wow, guys. Look at that. The February 29th is the first and final.
The only
for the longest time.
For the foreseeable future.
For the foreseeable future, yeah. So February 29th and March 1st, homestand weekend. Tickets are available now. You can go to hou.gg/2020 tickets to get single day and weekend passes. Let's just dive into this real fast. You're helping to organize an event of this caliber. You saw what the Dallas Fuel were capable of doing last year at their homestand. What can fans expect at the Houston Outlaws homestand on those days?
I mean, we're still working on it. It's been very hectic, because I don't want to downsell the event. I think it's going to be awesome. There's going to be 8 teams there. I think we have our practice facility stuff, so everyone should be good. And the Revention Center where we're hosting it is actually very well equipped, I think, for the type of content that we're going to be producing. It's like a music hall, so I'm assuming the sound's going to be good, like the visuals will be good, the seats will be good. I guess from the inside, it's been like really stressful, because we're like just going through the sale. Like that sale only just happened, and then we're also one of the first homestands. So It's like, hey, new owners, here's all this stuff that we have to do, and here's like all the people we're gonna need, and then, you're still going through all this like onboarding. It's gonna get done, and it's getting done well. But in terms of like fan experience, it's gonna be up in the air, I think. But I'm really hoping that we can like deliver, and I hope it's never a bad time. But
yeah, well, it's Houston. And
the city is awesome. I mean, people don't come down here enough. I'm actually shocked that I've never been down here, and I'm like sad that I've never been down here. Like the one thing that the biggest like change I think in mood for me has been just being in the city. Like it's just nice. Like the weather's nice. I mean, people are like, oh, it's gonna be really humid and hot, but like, who cares, man? Like there's no snow, dude. Like,
yeah,
just put on the air conditioning, forehead.
Yeah. No, yeah, you are 100% right. I actually had the pleasure of doing an event over in Houston. It was the ESPN Collegiate Esports Championship. We had a real good time. ESPN, hosted the event, and I'm trying to remember where the venue was. It was at this really big convention center, because we were part of some other festival. And the thing I remember most notably was going to go buy a bunch of Super Nintendo games. Good time. Ooh. But it was awesome. It was a great event, and I loved my time in Houston. Houston's a great city, so I'm pumped for this. I'm pumped for you guys. If there's any final words you want to say before we close it out? Final thoughts? The floor is yours, dude.
No, I mean, I'm looking forward to the season. I think it's like I haven't really had enough time to talk about what went down, I guess, in general. Not here, I just mean in general, in terms of like how everything's intertwined. And it's kind of weird because I haven't read or watched any reviews, like you're referencing Sideshow in them, but I like legitimately have not watched this.
Probably good for your health.
Sideshow content. Yeah, other than like seeing pictures of his missing eyebrows, which like,
very horrifying.
Did your parents let you come back for dinner that night? Like, I don't, there's a few questions there, but no, I mean, I think the Outlaws are going to have a good season. And like, I personally am super excited to see what can happen, because being able to take a hands-off approach and then watch something that you're like working on in the shadows versus like something that you're way more mentally invested into every single day. Like the difference between watching scrims and participating in scrims is like, it feels a lot better to me this year. And I think it feels a lot better to all the players, knowing that they have like really, really high level staff, and like just everyone's ready to help them. And there's so many people that they can ask for, anything.
That's awesome.
The morale is just better, and good morale is a good starting point for a good season.
Well, man, I'm happy for you. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys could do this season, Flame. And I think it's a long time coming for the Outlaws, for the fans, but also it looks like you put together a pretty darn good team. So nothing but the best. And looking forward to seeing what you guys do in a massive season for the Overwatch League and also for the Houston Outlaws. Thanks, bud. Once again, thank you so much to Flame for taking the time to talk to me about the Houston Outlaws. And I know that there were a lot of things that were discussed, but I hope that this gives you some kind of insight into what it takes to run a team, and also what this means for the Houston Outlaws in the third season of the Overwatch League, which will launch February 8th in New York City, hosted by the New York Excelsior. And that's going to do it. Thank you so much to everyone for checking out That Esports Podcast Episode 2. It doesn't matter where I am in the world, I will make sure I bring this podcast to you, this time coming at you from Belize. And there are going to be some great announcements in the next few weeks about some of the things that I will be doing work-wise. I'm looking forward to sharing that with everyone as well. Thank you so much once again for listening. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at GoldenboyFTW. Follow the podcast at That Esports Pod. And if you take a moment, follow us on Spotify, as well as rate and review on Apple Podcasts. Who knows? If it's funny, I'll read it in the next episode. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening once again, and I'll see you next time. Peace.